Welcome to another episode of Holy Homo Healing Hour. Today we have with us Shelly Ayers, who is a high school counselor and writer currently residing in central Kentucky with her soon to be wife and four fur babies. Formerly a member of the Pentecostal Church, she is a true mountain child from the hills of East Tennessee and passionate about literature, particularly of the Appalachian variety. If you can't find her outside, she's probably reading under a pile of dogs and cats. So, welcome, Shelly, and you are a writer. So, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I am a writer, and I'm also a high school counselor. So unfortunately, I find it hard to do both of those things well. If if I had the money to just write full time, I absolutely would. I unfortunately like to eat a bit, and I can't. But yeah, so as far as my writing, I typically I'm a storyteller because I'm from Appalachia. I live in Danville, Kentucky, but I am originally from brace yourselves, Stinking Creek, Tennessee.
Nice.
I love it.
It's a real place. So I grew up hearing big stories, big tales all the time. And that's how I learned a lot about who I am, who I came from. And so part of my writing is to preserve some of those stories that could and will very likely fade away as time goes
Yeah.
on and as people pass away. I'm primarily a fiction writer. I dabble with poetry and I do have a few memoirs out there. But yeah, I mean that's largely the gist of it. I try to branch out a bit. I went to Spalding University and got my MFA. I do have a novel in progress, which beautifully in tune with this podcast. I am kind of sitting on it like an egg and I'm thinking about when to finish it because so much of it is true. I mean,
Hmm.
it's fictionalized truth, but there's so much of it that's going to hit so close to home with my people. I had an opportunity to get it out there with the University of Kentucky Press earlier. I have released some memoirs and short stories that I was okay with, and but a novel feels like a different thing that will have to be publicized more. So yeah, I'm still working through that one.
This is one of my most recent hyperfixation thoughts. Being Appalachian and queer, I am wondering and discussing with people if being Appalachian affects storytelling in the sense that there is that cultural pull of these are my people, these are my kin, this is where I'm from, in a way where it's a I don't wanna say stronger than another connection, but there's something culturally that makes it a little bit more difficult to say even truth because there's so much of, like, "Oh, you have to
And then
protect your
that like
people."
that family bond, right?
Yeah,
That's what you were talking about?
the family bond
Oh,
there.
yes, absolutely. I mean, and especially being from Stinking Creek, you can imagine there are not that many people there, and the people that
Yep.
live there have been there for hundreds of years. The land that my family owns still has been in the family for 200 plus years. And I discovered this because I
Wow.
did an ancestry research project. I mean, this all goes back to the whole idea of Appalachia in general. It all goes back to the Scotch Irish and the idea of clans. And very much where I'm from in that area, you still see clans. For
Yeah.
example, I was an assistant principal at an elementary school in that area. I only was confident going into that role because I knew that they knew who I was and who my people were,
Mhm.
because the staff would not and have not responded to people that they don't know. It's still very clannish. So,
Yeah.
yes, and absolutely. And like I said, I have erred on the side of speaking my truth and being honest and erred on the side of creativity, but there is always this kind of innate fear or concern, maybe not fear as much as just concern. And so knowing all that, I think it is, I don't want to say more difficult than anybody else's journey,
Right.
but there isn't a component of why would you talk about our family
Yeah.
in any context um,
Yeah.
outside of our family. When I had my first girlfriend, actually, very distinctly, there was a conversation that I had with my mother, whom I was very close with. And one of her leading questions was, why would you talk to anybody about us? You know, why would you tell anybody anything about us? And so, yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely a barrier, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think the culture itself feeling so othered, there is that sense of, oh, I need to protect Appalachia. I need to protect the Appalachian people. This is what I've experienced. And it is such a delicate balance for sure.
As somebody not in that sphere at all, do you think some of that comes from people who aren't Appalachians looking down on Appalachian people so that you don't want to talk about any of the bad stuff because people already have that, oh, Appalachia hillbilly outlook?
You
Yeah.
have teeth? Are you
I
kidding
would
me?
say, yeah. Right?
No, I do think so, and it's funny that you say that because I have learned to just kind of embrace it, and 2 of my best friends, I don't see them as much as I wish I did now that I've moved. I've been in Kentucky for 4 years now, but they're still my best friends and I still see them, and we were a little trio, we called ourselves the Country Queers, and and there's a documentary on YouTube by a former student of mine called Chow Chow, and it explores a lot about what you just asked about the stereotypes and this desire to protect Appalachia while also breaking down some of those stereotypes. Like, yes, I am from Appalachia and I'm proud to be an Appalachian. However, like everywhere and everything, there is a dark side and a beautiful side. And yes, I think that's a lot of it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you do hear those nasty comments like about how you
Yeah.
sound or what's your IQ or or do you have
Yep.
teeth or, you know, all the things.
I have unfortunately lost most of my accent, but still very proudly Appalachian.
Yay.
It's not something I did intentional.
Where are you from in Appalachia?
I'm from Barberville or Barville, as we would say. So,
Horrible.
Ah, North Barberville. Yeah.
yep. So we have our own stinking creek, but I didn't know there was one in Tennessee.
There
There's
is,
one
and
in
you know,
Barberville
I
too.
didn't learn that until I went to LMU. I didn't know I was like, what do
Yeah,
you mean Stinking Creek, Kentucky?
I'm hoping that as this interview continues, that your accent will bring out Carrie's
it probably
accent a
will.
little bit.
I mean, I sound pretty much like cornbread all the time, but when I go home, I sound like cornbread. Like it's wild for a
Yep.
minute.
The first time Elise heard me call home, they were like, "Who are you?"
I actually pulled out my phone and recorded it and then sent it to my friends because I was like, that's Carrie. I love her accent. I wish she would talk with her accent all the time.
I wish I would too.
Do you do the code switching thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do
She
too.
absolutely does.
I do too.
Yeah.
And not even because of any reason except that when I'm home, if I say, for example, yuns, and I'm sure that you're
Mhm.
familiar with yuns, as in to mean you all. If I were to go home at Thanksgiving and say to my family, you all, or y'all even, they would be like,
Yeah. Yes.
because it's yuns. What are
Yep.
yuns
I
doing?
didn't know
Right.
there was something after y'all.
Right.
Yep.
I just learned something.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I love it.
That's
All right. Well,
awesome.
this is going to be fun because this is a lot of my favorite things coming together. So I guess let's back up a little bit.
I was just going to say, let's start talking about your just religious background
Yeah.
and like what you grew up in and childhood religion stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably not surprisingly. I grew up Pentecostal, so there were lots of shouting and speaking in tongues, and I've been with the snakes and all the other things. I still have a deep respect for the people and their commitment to the faith. I think a lot of the reason for that is just understanding the people and why their commitment to the faith is as adamant as it is, and understanding again with the clannish idea, how much outside of this bubble have many of them ventured to see or had the opportunity to do. So I don't say that in a judgy way. I say that in a
Mhm.
did they have the opportunity ever? For many, no. So I still have a deep respect for that. And I try to tread carefully on that regard because many of the people that I grew up going to church with, I still have somewhat of a relationship with. It's not what it used to be. Of course, I don't attend church anymore at all. But I still have a respect for the people and even the belief to a certain extent, but it's very complicated, obviously. My very first memory of church, and I don't know, I'm gonna guess 3, maybe. Whenever your brain starts to hold on to memories. And I was asleep in my mother's lap, and I'm just gonna speak Pentecostal speak, so if I need to clarify anything, please let me know. It was like a real busy service, and my mom was dancing in the spirit, and she basically kinda, like, threw me off her lap. Not, like, picked me up and threw me off her lap, but because she was dancing in the spirit, I was kinda, like, jostled off her lap, and I remember waking up and being like, "Whoa," you know? So, like, that's my first memory of church.
But my first memory of church is also in a Pentecostal church, and I was coloring under the pews, and I just remember the vibrations of the floor as people are running up and down the
Yeah.
aisles, and I'm trying to color, and it's, like, shaking the whole floor.
Stop messing with my art, okay?
Yep.
And that's funny that you said under the pews because as a girl, I was absolutely not expected to be other than sitting up very perfectly in the pew. I was not expected
Mm,
to be under the pews in my dress or whatever.
yeah. Yep.
And one of my best friends was a boy, and he could crawl under the pews, and it just so happened that he was the pastor's grandkid,
Yeah.
but I got my moments. When I was young, I had an aunt that did not believe in cutting her hair because she was using some of the scriptures that I wanna say some of the letters of Paul. I don't know if it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. But anyway, at some point in there is a line that, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, that says, "A woman's hair is her glory." So
Mhm.
she took that to mean that she should never cut her hair. So her hair used to drag the ground behind her. And the only thing to do with that much hair really was to put it up in a bun on top of her head with a bazillion bobby pins, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the marks of a quote unquote good service when I was growing up was, and I won't say her name, so and so shouted her hair down again in church. And so what that looked like was because she would get to dancing in the spirit and her hair was too heavy, so bobby pins would go flying around the church, like full on waterfall like effect.
Yep.
And so that was my moment because after church, I was allowed to crawl under all the pews and go in the choir loft and crawl
Ah.
around and collect all the bobby pins to bring them back to her, so
Ah, I
it was a
see.
win.
I
I
love
think
that that was a sliding scale of how good,
how good the
lively
service
the
was, yeah.
service was. That's amazing.
I must have been allowed because I was with my grandma, so I think if it had been a parent thing, maybe that was more of the, like, "Oh, no, you have to sit and
Yeah,
do like,
probably.
sit ladylike,"
Your
but
grandma let you do
since I
what you
was with my
want.
grandma,
Grandparents,
that's probably
like
why.
I actually didn't realize how much, or I guess how prevalent Pentecostals were in that belt. I guess in my mind it was
Mhm.
like Baptist, Southern Baptist was like the main thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't realize.
We actually, right in our town where I grew up, we have I wanna say one of the biggest Pentecostal, like, youth
Hmm.
camps is in Barberville. I don't know the name of
I
it.
was gonna ask, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I never went, but I know a lot of people
This is
that have.
How long were you in the church, and did you ever experience the spirit coming over you? Did you have any personal experiences with that?
I did. So currently, I'm still in a state of that's on the back burner. I'm going to address that later. I did have those experiences, and I don't know. I have thought different thoughts about it, uh, and I have done a lot of research on it. And as far as the science of it goes, science, however much science can apply to religion, I think I was taught to do certain things and be a certain way. But I mean, I certainly experienced real emotions and feelings in those
Mhm.
moments that I won't deny. But also, I remember doing some serious research once I started pulling away from the church on the concept of speaking in tongues and the whole concept of glossolalia and what that looks like. Um, and research studies that have been done about these services that you were talking about, like aisles and people, I'm sure you get falling out in the spirit and all these
Mhm.
things. Um, not to say that any of this is not real, but in my opinion, I think that a lot of it has to do with a real similarity to the idea of mob mentality, in
Mhm.
which sometimes when you are in a moment that's really intense, your adrenaline and your mind and your spirit, in a sense, does sync up with the people around you.
Yeah.
And notably, in most of these times that I'm thinking of, there was really intense music and really specific music and a very specific tempo, lots of drums, lots of
Mm.
bass, things like that. So yeah, I don't know. But like I said, I literally have in my brain pocketed that in an area of like to be assessed.
Right now, most days, I think I would identify myself as an atheist, but I have some of those same aspects where I'm like, okay, but I've been on a mission trip when a random stranger has walked up to us and started convulsing, and then we prayed out the demons. So what do I make of that? And I don't know. I don't. I don't know.
Yes, I did a lot of therapy about the demons and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So where are you now? What would you call your spirituality? Lack of spirituality? What are you?
I don't like to call myself a Christian for a number of reasons.
Yeah,
One of the biggest is association right now,
yeah.
and not just right now, but forever. I do believe in something bigger than myself. So I would still say that I am a believer in a greater good. But my thought is, and I literally made myself cry with a meditation this morning before work. So, classic me. But it was kind of surrounding this. I do still believe in the concept of God, but now I think for me, God is much more just the good that exists in the world. So every time someone does a kind deed, to me, that is God. And any good that resides within me is God. Any good that resides
Mm,
within you or anybody else is God. So I don't necessarily think of God as a singular being like I used to. I definitely think more now of God as the collective good that exists in the universe and is what I think the source of where we began, which was just good. But one of the most beautiful things I've discovered is growing up believing that God was this white dude on a throne with a long beard and all the things. That there was a lot of fear. Most of my early childhood revolved around fear. So if you don't do this, or if you do this, then you're going to be banished to eternal damnation. It's now the most beautiful thing to me, the understanding that said good and said higher being is just love. I mean, it's just love. It's pure love. And it's love that I think a lot of times is hard for humans to even process because there are so many thoughts about judgment and not even in the religious realm, just like retribution and things. But this idea of a love that exists that is pure and truly unconditional. And I think the idea of love as we know it as human beings right now, the idea of it being unconditional is kind of ludicrous as far as like most of us see that. But yeah, so that's kind of where I am right now. But I don't participate in any kind of religion or anything like that. My biggest religion is crying while I get ready for work because I'm meditating. So I'm grateful for things.
Yeah.
Are you a water sign? Are you a Cancer? You just said you cried a lot, so.
No, I do now that I do when I let myself like this morning, I was like, "Shelly, you have to go be a counselor to children who are gonna be crying about other things. You have to get yourself together." And that thing, of course, wasn't bad, but it was just like, "I'm so grateful." No, I'm a
Yeah.
Libra, so very much an air sign.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Mm.
cool. Do you wanna talk about your deconstruction and how that all unfolded? Was that tied into you discovering your queerness, or were those 2 separate things?
No, they were absolutely tied together. Absolutely. I do remember when I was very, very young, there were a few things. Like my best friend used to play wedding a lot, and I always wanted to be the husband. We always wanted to like kiss each other and stuff. And this was like kindergarten, my first best friend. And I remember when I was very young, I don't even think I was in school yet, but I remember praying to God, please don't let me be gay. And how I even, oh, I do know how now.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised you even knew
Yeah.
that concept.
One of my neighbors was gay.
Mm, okay.
Unfortunately, that neighbor was gay and also went to prison for molesting children.
Mhm.
Mind you, my parents grew up, well, my mother grew up with that individual. and they played together and whatever. And so he was the only gay person that she knew. So that was her perception of what gay looked like, you
Yeah.
know. I loved stories, so I was always listening in. Like, if I thought I wasn't supposed to hear, I was absolutely, like, under the table. I wanted to know what was going on. So, more than likely, I had probably just heard them talk about it because that certainly wasn't a conversation that ever happened. But I do remember asking God, "Please don't let me be gay because being gay means I can never go to heaven. I can never be saved," and all these things. And then in middle school, I asked someone very close to me, which obviously my subconscious was doing some work, right? But I remember asking a family member if I had to be one of two things, if I was going to be a prostitute or if I was going to be a lesbian, which one would you want me to be? Of course, the answer was a prostitute.
Of
And I
course.
remember really taking that in, even though, funny enough, all throughout high school, all throughout college, that was not a thing. I actually married a man because I thought I had to, because I had had sex with him. And because of my upbringing, I had been taught that that meant I had bound myself to him. I did not want to marry him, but I did. And then 4 years later, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna risk it." There's all these, like, scriptures that allege that if you are the person who initiates the divorce, then you're the problem. You're the one that's gonna bear this sin. But at a certain point, I was just so miserable. I was like, "Whatever."
Mm.
And so that's what happened. Very shortly near the end of said divorce, I had a friend in the church, actually, that I was very close to. And all throughout high school, we had remained close and we would hang out with each other. And I had, on more than one occasion, had little boyfriends or whatever dates planned. And I would cancel them if I got the opportunity to hang out with her. But of course, I just had kind of blocked anything else out of my mind and thought, well, it's just, oh, we have this really spiritual connection, you know?
Relatable.
Yeah. And so, because of said spiritual connection, that pretty quickly revealed itself to be what it was. But then came the whole idea of, okay, I was a Sunday school teacher, I was a children's church teacher, I sang in the choir. And just out of respect, not because I personally, well, at that time I wasn't sure, but not because I personally thought at that point in time that I was sinning, but because I knew that if the people in the church knew what I was doing and who I was with, that they would think it was wrong of me to be in those positions. And so, out of respect for that, I just did a slow moonwalk out of all of those positions and ended that.
You didn't have the guilt in yourself. It was more just you knew that the church was going to disapprove. And so then, okay, that's good.
It was, yeah, it was, but at the same time, I was still very much like in a place of, whoa, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening, but here it is. I often think, had I not been gay, would I not still be believing and doing what I was doing? Because my gayness obviously made me stop and be like, okay, whoa, full stop. You know what you feel and you know how pure it feels. And
Mm.
you know that this is not something that is wrong because your gut and your soul tells you that.
Yeah.
But at the
Mhm.
same time, it absolutely is according to what you believe and what you teach. So then I had to really like get serious about, okay, what is going on? What do I think about this? How do I deal with this? What does this look like? And it was, I am 41 now. My initial deconstruction first sprouted at 24. There were many years of, I used to have night terrors all the time when demons were coming to get me. And I
Mhm.
did a lot of therapy to try to recover from that. A lot of meditation, a lot of journaling, a lot of being out in nature and talking to people. And thankfully, I don't have those anymore. I do tell my partner now if we watch a scary movie, like, first of all, I don't want to watch anything about demons because I've done a lot of work to get away from that. I don't want that put back in my brain because I'm not trying to do therapy
Yep.
all over again. Like, I'm not, um, but it's been a long, tough process.
Was that the hardest part for you to let go and get over, was the spiritual warfare aspect?
Yeah. Yeah, not deciding if, like, am I going to go to this eternal hell? And ultimately had this experience in which I was at a music festival and I was in a special place in my brain, but I was like at a certain point, like I know if I look at this tree over here, I'm gonna see the devil and I'm really scared about it. But I finally, in my special headspace, was like, okay, let's just do it. And the really beautiful moment for me was I did, in fact, see what I thought as the devil, which I was really disappointed in my creative brain because it was like the red faced horns, like, okay, wow, brain, like you could say that, okay. Then the beautiful moment for me in that second was understanding that, okay, I'm looking at this, but you know what? I'm in my power. I can look away from this also. I don't have to continue looking at this and being afraid of this. I can shift my gaze otherwise. And I did. And in that moment, it I felt something shift. And it has, it was a process from there on, but yeah, that was my biggest fear was that, well, what if I am wrong? What I'm feeling is some of the things that I was taught growing up? What if this is just the devil tempting me? Or what if this is just a ploy to get me straight to hell? Um, so yeah, that was the biggest part. Although I have felt much more peace with my relationship with the good and my relationship with myself and my identity, it's only been in the last 4 years that I have really found, and with my recent partner, I just was like, man, I am like 37 years old at this point. I am tired of doing this song and dance of, well, I can't bring anybody around and so I finally just said, I love you all, but this is what it is, and it's it's been a lot better since then.
Okay, real talk. If you're still here, you clearly love us. So go ahead and make it official. Hit that subscribe button and give us those coveted 5 stars. It's free, it's easy, and honestly, it feeds our validation issues. Now, let's get back to the good stuff. So you started deconstructing around 24, but what I'm hearing is you didn't actually like fully come out until like 37. Is that?
No, I was out at 24, but it was only
Oh, okay, okay,
out.
okay.
I was sort of kicked out of the closet. Um,
Gotcha.
I was too trusting. Growing up on Sinking Creek, like I said, I was at home on a Sunday for dinner when I was about 24. Yeah. And at that point in time, we barely had any service on Sinking Creek whatsoever. So I had this phone that didn't really work. And so I just left it at my mother's house and walked to my grandmother's house, which is just right across the road. And while I was gone, my mother went through my phone. Yes, I was 24, I know. She was suspecting some things, and she and I are much better now. But, she suspected some stuff, already, and so she went to my phone and confirmed it. And so when I got back to her house, she was, like, standing outside under a tree, arms crossed, ready to go, and I was like, "Oh, well." But I had to come in at least twice to her, but yeah, I was out. It just took that long for me to reconcile all the things because I was such a firm believer for so long. There was so many components that it took a very, very long time. And it did take until my current partner to be like, no, like, I don't care what you tell my niece and my nephew, because that was the big thing. Well, what are they going to think? And I was like, I don't care what you tell them. I don't care what you tell them at all. You don't have to tell them anything. But I am not going to continue to come to Christmas if I have to tell my significant other, you can't come. I'm not going.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it was more like you were out, but then you finally started putting your foot down on like, no, this is who I am, and you either accept me or you don't, and I'm not gonna acquiesce to you. Yeah,
and it
yeah,
absolutely broke my heart. I mean, it did. And of course,
yeah.
I found a very supportive community in the gay community, which was great. And I had a lot of great friends that became family, they became my chosen family. And they were absolutely there for me. And that helped me through all that because Yeah,
Mhm.
for a long time, I went from being like this with my family to being not. And then I was the
Yeah.
Yeah.
problem, and they were talking about me at
Mhm.
holidays, and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna ask a little bit of an unfair
that's
question, and if we need to cut it, we can. Has the process and progress with your family, has that been them becoming more accepting, or has that been you kind of pulling back on what you're okay with?
I think it's a real testament of love. And the reason I say that is because yes, part of that was me bowing down to what they wanted. But I want to interject and say this as part of my processing everything. And I, for a long time, and I'm not proud of this, but this is just the thing that I did. Strictly only dated people that I knew it would never work with because
Mm.
I was afraid of falling in love with someone and wanting to marry them and what that would look like and
Yeah.
what kind of
Wow.
fallout that would be. So I picked the people that were the absolute worst for me that I knew had no ending, no future whatsoever. And I did that for a very long
Wow.
time. So that was part of it. And then I could justify to myself, well, I mean, this isn't going anywhere. But
Yeah.
really, that was just a mechanism that I was using, and I recognized that, but I don't think that they would have changed at all had I not been like, "This is it." I have finally grown up enough and accepted myself enough to know that I have met someone that I intend to marry, and so this is gonna be different, and I think that was very hard for them, and that's why I say it's a testament of love because as hard as it is for them, and I know this because I am absolutely everything that is against their beliefs, and they still absolutely believe that I'm gonna go to hell. It doesn't come up like it used to, but once in a while, still in conversation, there will be a comment like, I called my aunt a few weeks back, and one of the first things she said was, "I'd like to see you back where you were." And I said,
Mm.
So you mean like in the church, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So, sometimes it still comes up, but not in
Yeah.
the way that it did. But I say it's a testament of love because at first, the way my mom was with me was very much like, I'm cutting you off. And then as time has gone on, and even as recently as last week, she made a statement, not regarding my sexuality, but just another family thing. But she was like, "You're always my daughter and you're always going to be my daughter." And I know that's really hard for her. I mean, it's hard for her to swallow. It's hard for my sister to swallow. It's hard for any of my family to swallow that I am this person that they did not think that I would be, and I live this life that they didn't think I would live. But I think one of the really important things about that was I just decided early on I have to keep showing up and being myself because when I was first kicked out of the closet, there was all this conversation that was unfortunately so much of it was dated, like think early '80s speak, and I could tell that they did not know what they were saying, and they were not updated on anything,
Yeah.
and so for that, I know it's a big step for them
Yeah.
to have made that step in my direction to at least be able to say, like, "I love you we want you to come to Christmas or whatever. And yes, you can bring your person with you. You know what I mean? And their counter last year was a big deal because it was the first time that they had ever actually purchased gifts for her.
Wow.
So it was progress. But part of that was me continuing to show up because initially, my mother in particular was like, "Are you going to start stealing from us now?" Because in her mind, now that I'm a lesbian, I'm also every other sin that could possibly
That
be.
slippery slope. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
now
just a complete
I'm
degenerate. What
Yeah.
a weird pipeline. Yes, yes, I am gay and now I am a thief.
yes, yes, I am all the bad things in the world that you can imagine. And I told her then, I was like, "Mom, I am the same person as you've always known. Like, I
Mhm.
am not different now." And I think continuously showing her that and showing up and being the same person that I always was, because she
Yeah.
had this
Yeah,
belief about what a gay person looks like and what a sinner looks like and all these things. And I think it really confused her because I was the same person that she had always known, but there was this
yeah,
extra
of course.
detail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love that you said it was really important for you to keep showing up because we have that conversation a lot of it's so nuanced and like yes, we do need queer people in spaces where they are being seen to be normal people. And then also there's the other side where sometimes it's not safe and you have to have that boundary and like, you have to create space for yourself to keep your own sanity. And so finding that balance and finding that line, I think is very much a personal question of what do you need for your peace and for your happiness?
Well, and that's the unfortunate reality is I feel like with all the queer people that we have interviewed, that is very much the theme of healing the relationship or making that connection falls on the queer person, the person who's being ostracized, the person who's being, kicked out. And it's
Yeah.
like this shouldn't be my responsibility to have to repair this when you're the one who can't like accept me. But like
Yeah.
that's just where it falls every single time, you
Yeah.
know?
It is, and I agree. So much of my feeling about that does go back to
Hmm.
what we mentioned earlier about access and choice. Some of it is choice. I mean, my sister went to college. She met other people that were not like her. But like my parents, they've only known a select bits of humanity and they're all the same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to is exposure. I mean, just exposing yourself to new people and new ideas and
But even
yeah.
that too, because then it's still like so often, especially in Appalachia, like the queer people don't want to stay. They don't want to stay in that
Yeah,
place
that's
where
true.
it's so hard to be. And like, yes, exposure is great, but also to what extent?
I mean, and I totally get it. I get why one does not want to stay in their hometown. And for the longest time, I really struggled with moving to Danville, not because I was afraid of getting away or anything like that. But part of it was what you just said is I was very with my little friend group that we called ourselves the country queers. That was one of the things that we were really adamant about was staying in the Harrogate tri-state area for kids because growing up we didn't see any adults that were gay
Yeah.
openly, and it was this big secret. And so that was part of our mission was to stay there. But for me in that moment, I had to get away because it was too much. I had to leave for a
Yeah.
minute. But one of the things in the novel in progress, I basically gave a tribute to what you just said, which was if and I'm paraphrasing a bit because I can't remember exactly how I said it right now. But for those of you for whom these mountains don't feel safe, go and take your quilts and your stories with you and tell them I am from the mountains. The mountains sent me. And if you can come back and if you want to come back someday, please do. For those of you who the mountains will never be safe, still know who you are. Take those things with you and know that leaving the area does not diminish who you are. Um, and what you have within you. I mean, that was kind of the gist of it because 4 years ago, I had to step out for a second. I hung in there for a long time, and like I said, I may go back, but one of my friends in said country queer group stayed and recently married her wife, and it now like struggled a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I feel that really deeply, more than I more than I expected to, because it is part of Appalachian culture is that tie to the land. Like you do feel so connected to the land and the area, and needing to leave for your safety is such a hard thing. And there's just a lot of complexity with being queer and Appalachian and staying and going and religious that is just so interwoven into your identity that it is so hard to deconstruct and still hold that.
that's one of the things I find about Appalachian literature in general, and I'm sure you've probably noticed this too, but there's always this sort of nuance between always wanting to leave the area for whatever reason, and then always a longing to be back in the area.
Mm.
It's this place of like, ugh, can I
Yeah.
ever really feel whole? Because I want to get
Mhm.
away and then I want to get back. A
Yeah.
complex thing, as you said.
I guess I need to unpack some stuff there. Um, man. So tell us a little bit about your current community or the queer community that became family while you were moving through those transitions. Because I know for people who were so deeply in the church, that's your community. So when you were getting out of that, where were you finding community?
Ooh, and I'm glad that you said that because that's such a thing. Because I mean, yes, I knew that my immediate family, I suddenly had sort of a break with them, or we had an issue, something had shifted and was different between us. But yeah, stepping away from my church community, yeah, those are my people. So I felt like I lost a great extended family as well. Even though many of them were and are still wonderful to keep in touch, but it felt that way, because Lord, I mean, I was at church 4 days a week easily.
Mhm.
So then all of a sudden, all that's gone. And this is, I wouldn't necessarily say great advice, but I started frequenting, gay clubs and gay bars and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And while I drank entirely too much, I did find um, another community. And often that community felt the same to me as the community that I had in church because
Mm.
it was about the same thing. And I guess that's the thing about church that is bothersome to me in some ways is that really that's all it is. If you take a bar with regulars and a church with regulars, we're all just looking for the same thing. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
looking for community, we're looking for friendship, we're looking for fun, we're looking for support and
Mm.
family. Oftentimes the church gets complicated in that, whereas at the bar, somebody, I mean, you're probably going to run into people that are going to tell you how to live, probably, but at the same time, not in the same way because there's not a prescribed, I don't want to say curriculum because that's the teacher in me, but there's no prescribed
Doctrine, maybe?
yeah, that you have to follow.
Yeah.
And really, honestly, that carried me so much. That and my animals. I've always been an animal person.
Mm.
I think that's such a valid thing to bring up because societally, church has like a monopoly on community. Like people just assume, oh, community, church, church, community.
Mm.
And as someone who never really found a community in the church, I mean, like we need to reframe our thinking, and that community is that it is going to a bar and finding regulars. Or for me, honestly, when I was at Liberty University, it was a tattoo parlor. I went in there and I started getting my piercings and tattoos, and I became best friends with one of the guys there, and I was friends with all those people, and then it branched out from there. And it really is just picking a spot that you like, whether that's a book club or a tattoo shop, a bar, and just being accessible and just meeting people in the same space and building your own community. You don't need a church. Church does not have to be your sole source of community.
Yeah.
No,
And we need to break that mindset
Yeah.
that church is community.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if
Yeah.
I hadn't had those friends that did become family, I don't know, and that's it. That was in the era of like, okay, well, none of our families like us. So let's have a Friendsgiving, you know,
Yeah,
instead of
absolutely.
having that awkwardness of or the heartbreak really of going home and having the awkwardness that shouldn't exist. Was yeah, okay, we're all gonna bring wine and eat turkey and hang out together and accept each other. So that was the big thing. And I read a lot during that time too. I did a lot of reading. I can't remember who the author is. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now, but there's a book, So You Don't Want to Go to Church Anymore. Books like that. And I just kept picking those up and reading them to see other people's experience. My very first girlfriend was also very deeply a part of the church. So we were both like, gosh,
What do we
what,
do? Yeah.
what
Yeah.
now? We are in a mess, y'all.
Was your girlfriend also Pentecostal or was a different
Um,
denomination?
had been brought up Southern Baptist, but yes, had converted
Okay.
to Pentecostalism in the last several years before we got together.
I have a question back to the Pentecostalism and deconstructing. Since like the spiritual warfare and like the fear of hell was so big for you, what are your thoughts on the afterlife now? And kind of how did you reconcile all of that?
I won't lie to you and say that there are not moments. I hear a noise that I don't know what it is, and I'm like, no, I've been on the whole time. Unless I knew it. No. Because growing up, I was always afraid of the rapture, and I was afraid to be
Hmm.
left behind, which is hilarious, but I was always just afraid that I was left behind, And this was in the era of landlines. So I would get home from school, and if I couldn't find anybody, if no one was around, I would always start like speed dialing my grandmother or people that I just knew had gone to heaven. And if none of them answered, then my panic increased. And so the second that somebody from church answered, I was like, "Hey, I was just doing something. Okay, bye." You know, they're still here. That'll be
That's
okay.
fine. Totally healthy.
Right.
No fear involved whatsoever. Somewhere deep in my psyche, I know there's honestly, I have not completely eradicated that little tingle of what
Mhm,
if I'm wrong? However, what really keeps me in line with that is coming back to what I said earlier about the difference between religious me and more spiritual me now is I was afraid a lot back then. And the more I really focus on what I do believe now, it's love. And so, love and acceptance and unconditional love and the idea of hell that I grew up with, they don't fit together. So, no, I
mhm,
don't believe in a traditional hell that I used to for that reason, and I don't know I don't believe in a traditional heaven the way that I used to.
mm,
I tend to lean more towards the concept of reincarnation because if we're going with the laws of physics, energy can't be created nor destroyed, right? And
yep,
we are energy, so
Mm.
we're somewhere out there. But that's been a hard thing for me to accept over the years is because I was so locked into this idea of two choices. You know, your elevator's going up or down when you
mhm.
go, and like death being a scary thing. I mean, I think that goodness and love are equivocally the same. And yeah, whatever happens when I leave this particular mortal coil, I think I'll still be around somewhere.
You actually reminded me, I just thought of a time, maybe middle school, 13, 14, telling my, gay cousin, because she was kinda, like, thinking about Christianity, whatever, and, I told her, like, "Well, you do you wanna take the chance, basically? Like, wouldn't you rather, like, be a Christian and know, you're going to heaven or whatever?" And now it's so funny because I feel like I still have the mentality, but it's the complete opposite. Now it's, why would I want to give up my actual life that I am currently living right now
For that,
to follow some rules? Yeah,
Yeah.
for an afterlife that may or may not exist and like logically doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So, yeah, flipping that.
when you look at like a lot of like old school hymns that are
Mhm,
kind of, I think, universal across denomination, that's a lot of what you hear really. And I only reflected on this much later, but um this idea of like, I'm just making it through, life is so terrible, I can't wait to get to heaven.
mhm, yeah,
And but also, in my opinion, my humble opinion, having been a person who definitely read cover to cover the Bible on more than one occasion, that is in direct opposition to if we are taking the Bible at face value and saying, okay, this is the gospel truth. It is written that Jesus said, I've come to give you life and life abundantly. So
Mm.
to me, waiting to die um, and get to heaven and just making it through this earth, that doesn't, it doesn't
Yeah.
compute.
doesn't jive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah.
As someone else who was deeply in the church, in what ways through deconstruction have you felt more yourself?
It was kind of like a burden lifted. I mean, even though for a while it felt like there was a burden gained.
Mhm.
And like I said, I won't say that I'm completely free. And will I ever be completely free of some of the thoughts that linger here and there occasionally? Especially if I'm in a bad place or funk or whatever. But yeah, I feel more myself because at this point, I don't feel so bound to walk a certain way or talk a certain way or not say certain things or not express myself. So there's a freedom in that, kind of like ripping the band aid off. And for a while, I took
Mhm.
that the wrong way, I think. Because my initial thought, and this is so terrible, but my initial thought was, well, I'm already going to hell. I may as well break all the other. And I did. Yeah, I went for it.
Did you steal stuff though?
I did not steal stuff, but all the sins I had, like, kinda thought about, I was like, "Yeah, let's go."
Just the fun
Yeah, the
ones.
fun ones, yeah. So I did all those, but now in my life, I still feel more free, not because I think, "Oh, I've gotta go break every other rule that I was always afraid to break," but more of like, "You know what? I'm not worried about anyone else anymore." at all. Part of that is because I do still maintain a belief in a power that is higher than I. That is part of me, and that is goodness. And it's hard to go wrong when you're talking about goodness and love. So it's very freeing.
Yeah. You ready?
I think so.
All right. It's time for the final question. It's the final question. So we like to wrap up our episodes with the question: if you could go back in time to baby gay Shelly in the pews, what words of wisdom or encouragement or love would you impart to yourself?
I would say you're okay. And God really does love you. You're hearing that, but you're going to find out more later. And you're going to know God in a different way later on, and you're going to really understand unconditional love later on. And so just hang in there and keep playing with your truck. And don't worry about it.
Oh my gosh, I had so many Matchbox cars.
I know. My favorite. Oh my gosh. My aunt would take me like to the dollar store. And my sister was really shy, and I was always the kid that wanted to go out, you know. And she'd be like, okay, pick out a toy, of course, because aunts. I'm an aunt now. That's what I do too. Of course, I always picked out a car, one of those little cars that you back up and will speed off.
Oh, let him
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
So, and he was usually always a blue
Oh
truck.
no.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, we lost you.
Oh no. Frozen. There we go. Yay.
We got all the way to
Something about, we were
You're
talking
picking
about
up-
blue trucks.
you're picking out your car, and yeah, I think you had to get something for maybe a sister.
A sister, yeah. And I would always
Yes.
pick out a Barbie.
Oh, no.
thing.
I didn't realize we were a house divided, but you just said Matchbox car, and I was a Hot Wheels kid, so
I honestly don't remember. I feel like I had both. I don't
Okay.
feel like I was strong one way or the other.
We might have to rehash this later.
Thank you for listening to Holy Homo Healing Hour. If this show speaks to you, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Until next time, be kind to yourself. And remember, honey, we all deserve to be loved.